I'm Aaron Baker from PhoneDog.com, and it's part 2 of the dogfight head-to-head between the LG G2 and the HTC One. Two awesome Android phones with a lot to offer, but only one can come out the champion. Which one will it be? Let's find out in part 2. It's part 2 of a dogfight battle between the LG G2 and the HTC One, and like I said in part 1, I say this all the time, but there are some great Android phones out there, so like any other dogfight I've done in the past 3 months, this is an exceptionally hard choice to make, and I would advise you sit down, pick out the 5 things that are most important to you on a smartphone, and roll with those when you go to make your next mobile purchase, because you can't win them all. This has a big display, but it's a big phone. It has a big battery, but maybe you like HTC One's Sense 5 interface a little bit more. You can't win all around. You're inevitably going to find 3 things you like on one phone, 2 things you like on another phone, and you're going to drive yourself crazy. So instead, pick out the top 5 things that matter most to you. That said, we're rolling into part 2 of the dogfight between LG's finest and HTC's finest. And before I get too far into that, I'm going to thank my partners at Best Buy Mobile. We give you phones for free at PhoneDog.com, and that's because Best Buy gives them to us for free, gives them to us, see if I can say that, for free on the site at PhoneDog.com. When you walk into Best Buy Mobile, you'll walk out working. So whether it's your email voicemate, for example, or on the HTC One Blink feed, they'll make sure you walk out with all of that configured and ready to go versus spending time on your own, thumbing through paperwork trying to figure it out. It's part of Best Buy Mobile's walkout working program. Part 2 kicking off right now, and I talked about this in part 1 and actually ended with this in part 1, the personalization choices on these devices. Now, I hate to compare this to cars, but I compare this often to cars or clothing or fill in the blank with whatever it is you love in this world in terms of a hobby, but there are a ton of different choices, and it's very much a style preference when it comes to user interface. You may hate LGs and love HTCs. You may hate HTCs and love LGs. That's for you to figure out. But I will tell you this, we'll walk through some of it and take a look. One of my favorite things on the LG G2, the ability to change the on-screen buttons. This is really cool. Haven't seen this on any other device to date. So for example, you're coming from a Samsung device where you're used to the menu button being on the left side. Well, you can configure that in the G2 to get used to that. And then you can also come down here and change the theme of those buttons as well. So if I want them to stay white, I can keep those white. If I want them to be black, I can make them black, or I can even come down here and do black gradation and make them kind of curved. And I've got a bunch of different options here. I've got options for quick memos. I've got options to bring the notifications bar down quickly and easily. All very cool in comparison to other devices on the market, and really cool in the customization grand scheme of things, if you will. So you've got that screen off effect, a lot of just different cool things customization wise. Black hole here, we'll preview it so you can see when the screen goes off, makes the black hole look. Fading out is what I had it set to just a second ago, so I'll leave it on that. Font sizes and more, and conversely in the messaging application on both of these devices you have the ability to change the font size, the font bubbles, and more. So we'll come in here, for example, this is a sample message thread that I was sending myself back and forth. You can see that in action, and I've got blue and yellow here. So we'll come into this and go to settings, we'll go to conversation theme, and over here we'll go to notifications, and we'll go to multimedia or text messages. Or is it general? I can't never remember. Let's go down through here, background and colors. There we go. So backgrounds, for example, I can choose that, or I can go into colors right here and change around not only the background color, but the text box color as well. So we'll make it blue, for example, and you'll see when I come back out of here and click on a new one, the font, or the background rather, is black, and then I can say, hey, and we'll just send it to, for sake of sending it, 511. And we'll say, hey, and you can see that font color has changed. Over here, you got the option to change the wallpaper and the bubbles. So I can come around here and change the wallpaper if I want to. I can come through here and change the bubbles. We'll leave it on the ones that we had it on because I thought those were pretty nice. And we'll hit OK, and I can change all the themes currently on the device. So again, portrait to landscape, nice and fast in these. Speaking of that, and we'll go into text and take a look quickly at both of these. You've got LG's keyboard here pre-installed. It's much better than previous versions of LG's keyboard, but still leaves a lot to be desired, particularly in comparison to the HTC One keyboard, which I absolutely love. Quick Brown Fox is happy that it is Thursday. Quick Brown Fox is happy that it's Thursday. Portrait to landscape, quick here on this device as well. 4.7-inch display, 5.2-inch display. I do notice the difference working with both of these on a daily basis. There's a noticeable size difference. That said, depends on your personal comfort level when it comes to a size of a display. Now, if you're taking a look at this up here on the LG G2, you may notice right up here a little odd icon. Well, when I click that, it brings that icon, or that application rather, out onto the main screen so I can run stuff in the background and keep messaging here, and I can change the transparency of it if I want to, so I can make it semi-transparent and continue to see what's behind that actual widget. This is Q-Slide. This is their version of multitasking, and while it is a little bit less organized than Samsung's alternative just in the fact that it doesn't equally take up the screen, you may love it, you may hate it. So we'll come into Quick Slide here, for example. Actually, we'll come down here and go to Q-Slide, and we'll do messaging. We already did messaging. Let's do phone, for example. And I'll bring that in here, and I can move both of these around. So again, a little bit less organized than the Samsung offering. You can't, to a certain extent, make these take up equal parts of the display, or you can't move that bar up and down. You don't have the convenient messaging bar, if you will, over on the side, but still a nice multitasking option by all accounts. And of course, I can remove that if I want to. This is always accessible, so I can do Notepad if I want to and bring it down. And I can move these around on the screen as I see fit. And then again, conversely, I can come in here to videos. And let's see if I've got one that I can use. No files. Do not have a video that I can use, but I do have that option to multitask over there. Now over here, what you got again is blink feed. I really like this a lot. I can come in here and go to my highlights, topics, and services. I use this on a regular basis, and actually PhoneDog is highlighted in HTC's blink feed, so I do like that feature as well. We can come in here, for example, to using our colleagues, our competitors. We can use CNET, for example, and we'll go back and you can see it'll update with CNET articles, just using that strictly as an example. So move up and down and access that stuff on the fly, making it quick and easy to get the news that matters most to you pretty quickly. Let's take a look at cameras here. 4 ultra pixel camera, 13 megapixel camera with optical image stabilization. I'm going to spoil it for you. Both of these cameras are awesome. I love the HTC One's camera. I've talked extensively about it over the months, but LG G2 continues to impress me all around as part of my 30-day challenge. The optical image stabilization works pretty nicely over here. You get a wealth of mode options, including dual camera, night, sports, intelligent auto, shot and clear over on this device. And I can come back here and you'll see that it's focusing in. So I'll bring over a third device for us to mess around with. And since I just installed the Grandmaster or the Goldmaster version of iOS 7, I'll come over here and take a look at the iPhone and focus in on the text. Now same thing over here as well. Awesome camera all around. And I'll take a quick picture. And I'll show you just side by side a rough comparison of what these look like. So we'll go in here, take a look. iPhone, you can see. Zooming, no problem whatsoever there on this device. iPhone still looks very, very clear. Optical image stabilization on this device works very nicely, we'll say, after working with it outside and having a shaky hand. Pretty nice all around. Now what I like about the HTC One, the feature it brings to the table, the HTC Zoe capability, where let's say I'm at a wedding or a friend's birthday party or I'm just out having a good time with guys, I can take a combination of Zoes and stills, and then I can go into the events folder here, as you see, and we'll go into gallery, go into events. And I took all these pictures on the 29th. So just looking at these, for example, all these different pictures I took on the 29th in the office. Some of these are videos, as you can see that one right there. Some of those are videos, some are still pictures. Well, I can click right here and activate my highlight reel, which brings those pictures and those videos together and creates this really cool 30-second still, or 30-second video rather, that's awesome, and you can share it with your friends. You don't have to do any editing. I love that. I edit all day for a living, or part of the day as a living. And it's nice to be able to just do this and send it to my friends or upload to Facebook. So cool little video there. What you get over here really are the goodies in the camera itself. Again, very much like the Galaxy S4 here in terms of the dual camera option, and then of course all these different modes that you see here: shot and clear, dynamic to HDR, intelligent auto, time catch, shot rather, and more. So it depends on what you want to use in your camera. Honestly, both of these cameras are phenomenal. The slight edge goes, of course, to the LG G2 with its optical image stabilizer. So we'll go into speed test here, take a quick look at that on both devices. 4G LTE on AT&T, 4G LTE on Verizon. We'll make sure both of these are in megabits per second, and we'll begin the test and take a look. Talking really briefly about a couple of things here: battery life and display quality. We'll start with the display. 5.2 inches, 4.7 inch, both 1080p. Love the displays on both of these devices. I give a slight edge to the LG G2 for size. I think 5 to 5.2 is a great sweet spot for a lot of people. This is still very pocketable, but it's big enough that you can browse the web, you can text message, you can look at YouTube videos and not feel like you're on a cramped display. That's the one issue I have with the HTC One. I love this phone in a lot of ways. It's got a great amount of pros to it. I've ranked it personally as #1 on the OSR several times on my expert voting. But I will say the display is just a smidgen too small for me on the HTC One. That's the thing I always notice when I use this as my daily driver. 5.2, nice little sweet spot, nice little balance, and both of these are 1080p. So you can see overall, download, upload, about the same here. Upload significantly slower on Verizon, but again, chalk that up to a tower mishap or anything that happens when you're doing these tests in an uncontrolled environment. So last but not least, we'll do quadrant standard, and I will go in here, load it up, and I will load it up over here. Okay, let's run this benchmark and run the benchmark over here. We'll talk about battery life as well. 2,300 milliamp hour non-removable over here, 3,000 milliamp hour non-removable over on the G2 with some new battery technologies in it. HTC's done a great job with standby. They've really tweaked their software and made this a great product. The G2 is awesome as well. I do get more battery life out of the G2, even with 4G LTE. This thing is an awesome device from a battery life perspective. I'll say that 3 times fast. Battery life perspective, it's great. I mean, I get between 12 to 14, even 15, 16, depending on my moderate use of hours on this device between a charge. Over here, I get more like 11 to 12, maybe 13 if I'm lucky. So still not bad at all. But comparing these, for example, to the Galaxy S4 or the Note 2 or all the other devices on the market, this slots right in between the Galaxy S4 and Note 2 in terms of overall screen on, just juicing it up, battery lifetime. This is great because it's pocketable, so it's not as big as the Note 2, but it's still got a nice battery. And for me, I told you at the beginning of the video, list out those top 5 things. For me, a top 5 is battery life, probably number 1 or number 2. So nice to have that over on the G2. It's still good on the HTC One, don't get me wrong, but not as good as the G2. 12,963 over on the G2, 12,502 over on the HTC One. So it's faster on the G2, but not nearly as fast as you might think that it would be. Now, in conclusion, it's tough here because, you know, these all have pros and cons, and again, you got to find out what's most important to you. Here are the pros of the G2. Great size display that's 1080p. 4G LTE connectivity and availability on multiple carriers. Like the power and volume rocker buttons on the back. I think it's innovative. It fits really nicely with where your hand sits, and this is really cool. Just a cool little feature to boot. The downside is LG doesn't have quite the market share in the US that even HTC, at least with high-end smartphones, that even HTC, Samsung, and Apple have. So it's going to be a tough sell in some aspects. Also, the downside, this may be too big for some people at 5.2 inches. And it's plastic, so some people may not like that. Pros here, metal. Cons, smaller display. Pro, 4G LTE, much like this one. Con, slightly lesser camera in comparison to this with its optical image stabilizer. The winner of the dogfight is the LG G2, but I emphasize this over and over again, very much by a narrow margin. Unlike the dogfights of 2010, there's no phone that blows another phone out of the water. Honestly, when these are being compared pretty much head to head, it really is a tough call, and it depends on what you need in a device. Keep it locked on the site for more. I'm on Twitter at phonedog_Aaron. I'm on Facebook at facebook.com/HiAaronBaker. I got to get out of here before I run out of time. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.